folks, I guess we can rest easy because according to the internet sleuths out there, we now know who assassinated Charlie Kirk. Don't you know? It was the Cowboys. The Cowboys did it. Well, we're going to tell you all about it on this episode of Charlie Crimebuster, what some people are calling, well, they're calling it the fastest minutes in podcasting.
The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are solely those of the individuals participating and do not represent those of city, county, state, or federal law enforcement agencies, nor sponsors and platforms of this presentation. The Charlie Crimebuster name and all forms and abbreviations are property of its owner, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. All individuals described or mentioned in the presentation should be considered innocent unless or until found guilty in a court of law. This presentation contains adult subject matter. Listener and viewer discretion is advised.
Well, hello, welcome to another episode of Charlie Crimebuster. Glad to have you on the Charlie Crime train today. Folks, you know, I thought I was going to be able to stay away from the next ridiculous thing we were hearing about Charlie Kirk's assassination, but this one, it just, I could not look away. And I've got to share with you the latest theory on Charlie Kirk's assassination. And that is that the Cowboys did it. Yep, we'll talk about it in just a moment. But first, hey, thanks for joining us. If you haven't already, hit that like button, then hit that subscribe button. That way you will be notified every time we drop an episode. Also, let me remind you, go over to check out peacemakernetwork.com. There we talk about the people who run toward danger instead of away from danger. And you can become a part of supporting all of that. As well, check out our YouTube channel. YouTube, just go ahead and slash it Charlie Crimebuster. You'll see us there. Got a lot of exciting things. And don't forget to just go ahead and Google Charlie Crimebuster Radio. Charlie Crimebuster Radio. Be amazed what you'll find out about that.
The following podcast is brought to you by peacemakernetwork.com. peacemakernetwork.com. Audio is provided by pixabay.com. That's pixabay.com.
Well, let's get on board and let's talk again about Charlie Kirk and what happened with him. Why are we still covering it? Well, I asked myself that as well because we've done a whole lot of episodes on this, but more stuff just keeps coming out every week. You know, I do think it's important, though, to know that real evidence is being ditched in an attempt to get more clicks, and this is a shame. Because you and I know there are people who do follow true crime, who really care that the cops and the prosecutions get it right in the process of these cases. And in some of these cases, the public can actually assist in the investigation. But when it comes to the point that the public is hindering the investigation, that's when we really need to take note. You see, what we're seeing today is actually attempts to hijack the investigation, turn it upside down with conspiracy theories that do not follow investigation integrity. And this political assassination, well, it's one of the more important crimes in the new century. And I believe it's important to follow rules of evidence in the prosecution of the alleged shooter. This is why when someone with as many followers as Candace Owens and these others out there, when they speculate, we need to at least take a look at it to keep the investigation focused on the real evidence. In other words, refute the speculative and move toward sustainable evidence. And then we will be able to know that's the kind of things that will hold up in a court of law. This focus on sensationalism over real evidence is concerning, because it can undermine important criminal investigations. Now, true crime followers, they value accuracy, and they can sometimes contribute meaningfully to the cases. However, conspiracy theories, well, it often disrupts investigative integrity in significant crimes like political assassinations. And adhering to rules of evidence in prosecution, well, that is crucial. But public figures such as Candace Owens, they can influence the narrative. So it is necessary to scrutinize these claims and then to put a priority on the reliable evidence over speculation. This is the way that we can ensure that justice is being served. So how do we get from a lone gunman crawled upon a roof and shot Charlie Kirk to the point now that the Cowboys did it? Well, We go back to the start. On September the 10th, 2025, Charlie Kirk. He was a right-wing political activist, and he was assassinated right in front of 3,000 people there at the Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. It was an outdoor campus, and the debate was planned by his organization, which is called Turning Point USA. This is the one that he co-founded and led. Kirk was just 31 years of age, and he was a very close friend of our president, Donald Trump. Very highly influential figure, particularly in bringing the youth vote into the Republican Party and into the support of Donald Trump. Shortly after that debate began, again, around 3,000 people in attendance, Charlie Kirk was fatally shot in the neck with one single bullet by a gunman that was positioned upon the roof of a building that was approximately 142 yards away. Now, Kirk was then taken to a local hospital. His security group came in, and they did what we call in the security work a scoop and go. They scooped him up, they took him to a car, and they took him to the hospital, and sadly, he was later pronounced dead. Then there was a manhunt for the shooter. It ended following day when Tyler James Robinson, 22 years of age, from Washington, Utah, he surrendered himself to the local sheriff and prosecutors. There they charged Robinson with aggravated murder on September the 16th, and they did say, hey, we've got enough evidence, we're going to seek the death penalty. This was a politically motivated attack. So then comes all of the podcasters, including yours truly, but one that stands beyond all the others in their influence, Candace Owen. And at first, and by the way, she used to work with Charlie Kirk, and at first she voiced grief and concern. She showered praise on the work of her so-called friend, Charlie Kirk. Then, in mid-September, she began to question the investigation. She urged investigators and Charlie's organization, Turning Point USA, to be more transparent in the investigation. Now, as you and I know, who've been around true crime, most investigators, usually the police, do not comment on an investigation that's ongoing. And this actually became a talking point for this podcaster. She actually went on to use this as a means to attempt to discount the investigation for not being transparent. And by this she meant that she thought that the investigators were not cooperating with her own investigation. And they should, of course, if she says something, they should come back and answer her. And she thought that anything that they would say, then, well, we know that she would turn around and put it in her own light. And so investigators don't normally bow to the demands of civilians as Candace Owen demanding them to do this and do that. And so when they don't do this and that, they must be hiding something. You see, these investigators were not going to play her game. She then decided to attack Charlie's organization herself. She said, his own people did it. His own people did it. Now listen to that phrase, who did it, because you're going to find there's a whole bunch of people, according to her, that did this attack. She pointed out little things about what she heard from these people who were in crisis responding. Now, any smart investigator knows that people, even eyewitnesses in crimes, often get some details incorrectly. Something might be out of line. They may think it's a blue car when it was a red car. They may think it's that there were 3 people when there were only 2 people. Those things are very, very, very common when you talk to people who've been into a high-pressure crisis situation. But she took every little thing and she made it into something sinister about Turning Point USA. For example, she makes the real deal about the drones, if they were used or they were not used. And she makes that leap from some confusion as to why the drones were not flown during the event, well, to imply that people in Turning Point may have had a hand in the killing of Charlie Kirk, and if not that, at least implicate them in the cover-up. Now, don't get me wrong. One of my very first podcasts on this particular topic entitled, Did Charlie Have to Die?, I did point out some real weaknesses in Charlie's security plan. But that did not mean that I thought or that I found any evidence that his own people, his own security, had him killed. Were there weaknesses in that security plan? You betcha, my friend, there were a whole lot of them. Just like when I pointed out the weakness in the security of the attempt on President Trump's life in Butler, Pennsylvania, I saw weaknesses in Charlie's security. And I can agree with Candace that the security was weak. It was lacking. But then to make that leap to mean that, well, certainly they should have had something to do with his death. They should have been a part of the planning of his assassination. They were a part of the planning to kill Charlie Kirk. It's improbable to me, and it is not responsible commentary without some concrete evidence, which was not there. None that ties anyone from Charlie's organization to the killing of Charlie Kirk. And what's really disturbing about this is that these speculation that borders on the term wild even carries over to now. She throws shade on Charlie's own wife, Erica. And at the very beginning of her going down this road, she mentioned, well, Erica didn't ask her to stop doing this, so if she did, she would stop. Well, guess what? Erica told her to stop. Told her to stop it on national television. These wild theories are taken away from the investigation. But does Candace stop? Nope. Rather than that, she double downs on it. And as I said last week, if Candace is Charlie's friends, well, who needs enemies? Here she is attacking the organization that Charlie Kirk literally died for. She's attacking that organization. She's attacking the family of the very man that she called her friend. And let's talk about that thing about being the friend, you see. She says that she's such a close friend of Charlie Kirk. But Eric Bolling, a former Fox News and Newsmax host, he mentioned on the PBD podcast, he mentioned this week that while Kirk and Owens were tight more than a decade ago through their work at Turning Point USA, they had a, quote, breakup. A breakup. Why? Oh, surprise, surprise, surprise. They had that breakup because their theories got just a little too down the rabbit holes. That's an understatement. It was too extreme for Turning Point USA's taste. That's what Bolling said. And said Charlie, to his credit, he did keep a cordial friendship with her for years, but he hasn't been a communication pipeline between the two for many years. Now, I think you can add to that a couple things. Two things I think really impacted her with this organization. First, they did not even invite her to speak at Charlie's memorial service. If she was so close to Charlie, she said she was, why would they not invite her to speak? They invited so many other people to speak. That speaks volumes. And I believe that she was against anybody taking the helm of Turning Point USA other than herself. I think she saw herself in that leadership position. And because they did not call on her, she turns around now and attacks that organization. See, they turned the organization over to Erica's Kirk, Charlie's wife. And now Erica Kirk is in the sight of Candace Owen. All these attacks simply to imply and suggest that these people, including his wife, was connected to the death of Charlie Kirk. Well, we're going to tell you some more of these wild theories, and we're going to tell you about the Cowboys. Yep, now Candace is implying that the Cowboys killed Charlie. We're going to tell you all about that in a moment, but right now it's time to pause, take just a moment, and share with you Charlie Crimebuster's Crazy Crook of the Week. Well, our Crazy Crook story today comes all the way from Canada, Vancouver, Canada. You know, as a former law enforcement officer on the street, there were plenty of times I was involved in what we called a drug raid. A raid, going to try to find drugs. And this had to do with Jason Pache. his apartment was searched for drugs. But now, wait a minute, Jason Pache was not really a suspect. They were looking for somebody else. And they were going through the apartment there looking for somebody else. But that all changed. It all changed when suddenly they were able to look at Jason Pache's cell phone. Yep, they had it in the warrant where they could check the cell phone. And when they checked the cell phone, I guess they saw a lot of things that we usually see, a whole bunch of apps, this sort of thing, a whole bunch of text messages, that type of thing, maybe some emails and this sort of thing. But they really took a second look when they saw how his name was displayed there on the cell phone. You know how you can put that screenshot on your cell phone? Well, his name was up there, really bold for you to see, and it read this: Jason Pache, drug dealer. Oh, wow. My friend, if you were actively participating in drug dealing, then, my friend, I don't know that you would want to broadcast that you were a drug dealer. But yet, that's exactly what Jason Pache did. And because of the fact that there were other things found in that apartment, Jason Pache, drug dealer, he moved his residence from that apartment. It was moved from that apartment to the county lockup. In other words, the Popo got their man, who advertised himself as a drug dealer. So this idiot, this crazy crook who was bold enough to portray his name as Jason Pache, drug dealer, is indeed Charlie Crimebuster's Crazy Crook of the Week. All right, let's get back into our main part of our entire podcast today. The Cowboys did it, but there are some other people as well, so let's talk about some of these things that are happening. Let's talk about the wild things that's been thrown out about Charlie's death. The last one, the Cowboys did it. We'll get to that in a moment. But now, after his own people did it, well, there's now another one that goes, the Egyptian planes did it. That's right, Egyptian Air Force planes. Identified in her reporters by tail numbers, such as SUBTT and SUB Indeed. And she talks about the fact that she thinks that these planes overlapped with Erica Kirk's international travel dozens of times. She actually said the overlap was roughly 69 to 73 occasions between 2022 and September 2025. And she thought that that pattern suggested that the aircraft was tracking Erica rather than Charlie Kirk. And she added that on September the 10th, the day Charlie Kirk was shot, one of those Egyptian planes was briefly powered on at the Provo airport nearby there. Another one was seen taking off. And she says these circumstantial evidence means there was foreign surveillance actively connected to the attack. Well, that does sound a little weird, doesn't it? It does make you scratch your head. The only problem is none of this has been proved. None of this has been proved. She talks about they flew in and out of Israel on a regular basis. Well, of course they did. Lots of planes fly in and out of Israel. And she suggests all of this is taking place. The only problem, my friend, there is no evidence at all that links this to the crime. And Erica herself has mentioned that her travel itinerary was different from that of those planes. So where in the world she comes up with this fact that there were planes flying around, and so the Egyptian planes were flying to Israel, so somehow Israel must have been tied into the shooting and killing of Charlie Kirk. Oh, it sounds a little wild, makes you scratch your head, but again, no real evidence that that happened. And then not only did she say that the Egyptian planes did it, now she came back and said the preacher did it. Yep, the preacher did it. Let me ask you a question. Did trusted California pastor Jack Hibbs play a role in Charlie Kirk's assassination? Is Calvary Chapel a secret military operation to manipulate Christians into supporting Israel? Well, according to Candace, the answer to both of those questions, well, it's yes, a resounding yes. You see, in a podcast, she told her audience about an interesting tip that she received talking about an old man talking to a bush. She didn't think much about it till she realized that he said it was that person known as Jack Higgs. And she said that she, first of all, disregarded the tip until she realized that it was the brother of Jack Hibbs, Burton, who was talking to the bush. Now she's interesting. And she says another thing, the Hibbs are from a military family. You see, Butch Sr. was in the Navy. And what he did in the Navy, she said, was unclear. But she then implies that Jack Hibbs and other Calvary Chapel pastors were involved in this whole Utah story, meaning Charlie Kirk's assassination. So now the preachers have done it. Now, Jack Hibbs was a close friend and advisor to Charlie Kirk. But his brother's attendance at the event and his father's military background, according to Candace, is enough evidence to say that they played a role in Kirk's death. Pretty absurd, right? But it's one thing she's going with. Yep, the preacher did it. Now, what is her problem with Calvary Chapels? Well, if you really want to know what she really has against them, it's the fact that they stand with Israel. And she wanted to cast doubt on Israel. And she's even tried to bring about the fact, that, Turning Point USA, even though they have a lot of respect for Israel, that Charlie did not have that. But yet, people around him who are close to him said that Charlie surrounded himself with like-minded individuals who shared his own biblically founded love for Israel. Many of those were there with him at that time that he died. Well, common sense clearly is not on Owen's mind during this time. She said, yep, the preachers did it. Next, she says, the soldiers did it. That's right, the soldiers did it. She made a new and serious claim. She said this upon one of her posts. She said the military was involved in his death. Candace Owen shared this claim on her Instagram, saying she received an email from someone who said that he was in the military, and he said this theory links the killing of Charlie Kirk, the founder of Turning Point, that in fact he was shot and killed on September the 10th, tending the public vent, and that it happened by the military. Now, she did not share any proof on that post. She did not name the sender that gave her that information. And officials, of course, have not backed her claim. Yet, her post spread fast on social media, some strong reactions. And she wrote, "It feels like today will be the day that the government can no longer deny it. Charlie Kirk was assassinated and our military was involved." So now, not only did the preacher do it, not only did the people at Turning Point USA do it, not only did the Egyptians do it, the Israelis did it, but now she's saying that the soldiers did it. The military did it. And then, now, are you ready for it? She now says the Cowboys did it. How in the world does she get to the point that the Cowboys did it? Well, she talks about an email that she got from a man that's saying Charlie was killed by the same corrupt Texas cops that killed JFK. And she reacts to Turning Point USA and what they were doing to try to get her to stop. She begins her show, talks about the many emails she received, and then she talks about a man who said he knew for a fact that Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir was President Johnson's sister. And she likes that for some reason. But then she says that he tells Candace that allegedly all crooked cops, listen to this now, here's what she said, all crooked cops in America are part of what's known as the Cattle Barons Ball. And she claims that this is a massive Israeli money laundering operation that he was a part of, this guy that talked to her. and that the ball, of course, is the world's largest single-night fundraiser, and this ball is there, and it is a fundraiser, and it's for the American Cancer Society, and it was founded 50 years ago in Dallas. It's called the Cattleman's Ball, talking about the Cowboys there in Texas. But she takes this one situation where this Cattleman Ball, this charity that raises millions of dollars, and now she says that is a money laundering scheme, and they take that money and they buy off cops. And then, of course, this guy that she does not name, who just sends her an email, tells her that Dan Floyd was involved in this. Dan Floyd, rather, was involved in this. And he was a part of Charlie's security that day. And then she says that all of the part of the security that day, Dan, Brian Harple, Rick Calder, that they are all from Texas. And again, here he goes. They have military ties. And then she says, well, how can we expect the feds to investigate the feds? She puts them all in the same category as the feds. And she's talking about all these people. And she ties it to the Cattleman's Ball. And so now she says, the Cowboys did it. The Cowboys were a part of this because of this Cattleman's Ball that someone emailed her and said was a money laundering operation. But again, no evidence. Nothing at all that connects this Cattleman's Ball to paying off cops. Nothing at all that connects any of this to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So I hope you're understanding now, when I mention this, how outrageous all this is. The people at Turning Point killed Charlie Kirk. That's what she says or implies. She implies that the Egyptians did it with Israeli ties. She implies that the preachers did it because these preachers suddenly were connected to the military and that they are all involved in some sort of deep state movement. She said our own military was involved in it. And now she's saying the Cowboys were involved in it. Yep, the people in Texas, those folks down in Texas started that Cattleman's Ball. And that is nothing more but a big money laundering mechanism to pay off corrupt cops. And corrupt cops had to be paid off in order to bring in these people, this military organization that assassinated Charlie Kirk, and they're all a part of this big conspiracy. Again, no real evidence, nothing solid that will stand up in a court of law, just speculation, more speculation. And the more she speculates, the more people are listening. My friend, I don't know, I wanted to bring this to your attention because I wanted you to see how wild this was. If you were just sitting down, having dinner with someone, and somebody walked up and said, hey, I know who killed Charlie Kirk. It was the soldiers that did it. It was the military that did it. It was these Egyptian planes that did it. It was the Cowboys that did it. It was the preachers that did it. It was the people at Turning Point USA. Do you see how ridiculous all this is sounding? Doesn't it sound somewhat ridiculous to you? You say, oh, but maybe there's no proof. If there was proof to all that, yes, we should all listen. And we have looked at it, but there's no proof there. The proof all comes back to this young man, Tyler Robinson, who got on that roof top, had that rifle, and took that shot. Sometimes, my friend, it's just as simple as all that. We don't like to believe that. We like to believe that had to be something else there. No way that one lone person could get up and do all that. But one person could do all that. Security was not where it should be that day. And because it wasn't where it should be that day, this one young man who had a trans lover, who did not like what Charlie Kirk was saying in his debates, even though he gave other people an opportunity to present their side in a fair and meaningful way. He did not care for that. He thought that Charlie Kirk was sharing hate in the world, and he said in his own words, it has to be stopped. There was DNA left with him and the rifle. There was DNA left up there on that roof. There is the fact that he was present there. There was the fact that his image, his video was recognized by his own parents. There was the fact that he texted his lover, his trans lover, and told him what he had done. He actually incriminated himself by these texts that he left behind. He himself took it upon himself to surrender to the sheriff's office because he knew he was the guy. And he's going to go to trial for it. And instead of spending time talking about that case, she wants to speculate about all this other stuff that doesn't have any evidence. All right, folks. Enough said today. Thank you for joining us. This is Charlie Crimebuster reminding you to this time next time, be safe, be alert. For the life you save, it may be your very own.
You have been listening to Charlie Crimebuster. We would like to thank our sponsor, the Peacemaker Network, and also encourage you to support the first responders, military, and law enforcement personnel by contributing to the Peacemaker Network. That's peacemakernetwork.com. All music and sound effects are courtesy of Pixabay.com. That's Pixabay.com. You can also support us by subscribing to our YouTube channel, tag @CharlieCrimebuster, and then click the subscribe button. By doing so, you'll be notified each time we drop one of our shows. Another more convenient way for you to listen to our podcasts, or for you to say to your smart speaker, play Charlie Crimebuster. If you have comments or suggestions, we would love to hear from you, so please send them to charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. That's charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. Or you can call or text us at 407-917-2211. That's 407-917-2211. Thank you for listening, and we hope that you will join us again for another exciting crime episode with Charlie Crimebuster.